On today's show, we're going to have a look at the Ortur Laser Master 2 Pro. Is this a toy or a tool for makers? Stick around to find out. Hey, welcome back to The First Layer. I know it's been a while since we've done one of these, but today we are going to have a look at the long-awaited Ortur Laser Master 2 Pro. Now, this particular laser engraver, we're going to try and decide, is this a toy or is it a useful tool for makers? And I've had a chance to use it now for several months. If you want to know how we went about putting this thing together, we do have a video. We're going to link it up in the card over here. Yes, over here. We'll link it up in the card. You can go and check out that live stream that we did where we put together the Laser Master 2. Now let's just talk a little bit about how this machine works. Well, the Laser Master 2 uses a third generation 32-bit board, which is very convenient for the amount of commands that it can take and the speed at which it can cut. Now, the other thing about this is they've upgraded the laser module as well. What you're getting is a 20-watt laser that not only can cut through a lot of materials, it can do wonderful engravings. And what I'm going to do here is show you some of the engravings that we've gone through. Here's one that we did on canvas. This is of a prominent Canadian activist and actor. His name is Chief Dan George. Some of you may know him from the movie Little Big Man if you're in my age group. If not, you may not know who he is at all. But that being said, now, this particular laser does a great job of doing what you want it to do. Now, going back to the laser itself, this is their upgraded laser, the Ortur Laser 1.5 series firmware is what they're using on this, which is a little bit better. It comes with everything that you need, including glasses, some sample woods to try, some plastic, a little piece of acrylic. They do say that you can cut through up to 9 millimeters worth of material. Now, I didn't find that to be quite accurate. I tried cutting through 6 mil material, 3 mil material, and paper. Paper cuts beautifully. You don't really have to worry about much when it comes to paper. But when you are cutting into woods, especially, wood has a tendency to burn and char. So as you have a thicker piece of material, what happens is that laser tends to go down and you have to do many passes. You can't do it in one pass. The rule of thumb is you're going to do a pass at 100% power at about 150 millimeters per second. So you're slowing this right down to get it to go through all of that wood. If your wood is just a slight bit bowed, guess what? You're not going to be able to cut through it all. You are going to get through some of it. You may have to go on the backside with a hobby knife and actually break it away from the material that you're trying to cut it out from. It cuts and engraves into cardboard just fine. I didn't really try that because I really didn't see a need to do that. And you know, we've looked at some other lasers here that are part of 3D printing setups. I'm one of these people who would always tell you that if you're going to buy a tool for that job. So I'm not a big advocate of somebody who would go ahead and say, you know, buy a 3D printer that has a laser head, has a multi-head for this, has a cutting head for that, yada, yada, yada. I'm not a big fan of that. I think that if you're going to buy a hammer, you buy a hammer. What does it do? It punches nails through wood, right? If you're going to saw something, you're going to buy a saw. You're not going to buy a hammer that has a saw on it. It just may not work. So I think the volume of this particular laser engraver, I'm going to call it an engraver, not so much a laser cutter, because it does a great job of laser engraving. However, when you are doing multiple projects, one right after another, what tends to happen is that the laser seems to lose some of its power. So I've noticed through doing different tests that if you do one test, it will look fine. If you immediately go to another piece that you want to cut, or engrave, you may notice that the engraving's not quite as deep. You may notice that it may be darker in some sections and lighter in other sections. And that can have a lot to do with the warp of the material that you're putting into it. Now, I have not tried using acrylic on this laser yet. What I did do was I built myself a little cabinet so that we could use it. We went ahead and did a whole bunch of different things. And as you can see in these pictures that I'm going to show you now, we've done everything from laser engraving onto tiles. We've done some coasters. Here you can see that we did some Mario coasters and we did some Star Wars symbol coasters. And they worked out. They did really well. However, this Deadpool that you're looking at now, you can see up in the top left-hand corner that the coloring, the red coloring, seems to be really muted when it really shouldn't be. So with that said, I want to talk a little bit more about the safety features and the build volume or the cutting volume of this particular unit. You can do 16 by 16 inches, so or 400 by 400 millimeters, depending on which one you get. I noticed mine was sent out of the States, and I want to thank Made the Best for sending it to me. And they've been waiting a long time for this review, but I really wanted to use this print or this laser a lot because it's something I hadn't used before. I've used large industrial lasers, but never a hobby laser. Now, where would I put this in that category that I talked about earlier? Is it a toy or is it a tool? I think it's a tool for makers, hobbyists especially. You're not going to be cutting, a lot of really thick things. This will cut through balsa wood like butter. It does a really good job of that. Some of these safety features that they have on there is if you get any flameage, coming up from your material, if it starts to flame, the machine will shut itself down because there's a flame detector built into the firmware and the board. There's also an emergency stop. So if it's getting stuck somewhere or it can't move, it does you can hit that emergency stop and shut the whole machine down. Now you cannot resume that same engraving, so you're going to have a wasted engraving if that should happen. But I've gone up as far as 3,000 millimeters per second in engraving, and I've had to really push the limit of that engraving power of the laser. Now, when they say 20 watts, what you're getting on the output is about 5.5 watts. So it's not a really strong laser. It's not like your industrial 40Ks or your, 40K is kind of a hobby laser as well. But if you're starting to move up into much better lasers like CO2 lasers, this is a diode laser. Bear that in mind. It can harm your eyes. Now, one of the things that it does come with is a little shield, and you can see that here on the actual laser head itself. That little shield will help you in blocking that blue light from the laser itself. So you don't necessarily need to wear the laser glasses that come with it. I do recommend for safety that you do that. Some of the other things that I found that really didn't kind of gel with me, and this is kind of my own stupidity, but I want to bring it up anyway, is that it produces a lot of smoke depending on what you're making and how high the power is on your particular laser. Now, the laser ships with a laser Gerbil, which is a open source free program. It is easy to use. I found it not to be as intuitive as I would have liked it to be for a beginner. So I went over and bought myself a copy of Lightburn, which is pretty much the standard nowadays for laser engraving software. I think my subscription to that was $40, or I think it was a one-time cost of $40. I can't remember, but I would check it out. I'm going to leave links to all of this, even to Made the Best, down in the description below, so that you guys can go and check this out for yourself if you don't have one yet. If you are looking at putting this in your hobby room, you are going to need a way to vent out that smoke. So if you're putting it in the garage, you might want to build yourself an enclosure. I did for mine. I put a fan on it, and that would draw all that smoke out, and it goes out the doorway. Now, winter is coming here in Alberta and in Canada and in the northern part of the US. And what we're going to run into an issue with is, where do we put the laser in the winter so that we can still use it and not draw in the cold from outside? So that's going to be a challenge for us. But if you have a heated garage, you may want to put it in there. Remember that when you are doing laser engraving, that you want to stick in that room where you are doing the engraving, because if it should shut itself down, you're not going to know if you're not there. If it should start a fire, you're not going to know. Keep a fire extinguisher handy. These things won't go into massive flames right away. I haven't had that experience at all. I did have the alarm go off a couple of times where flammage did occur on some of the things that I was cutting out. I found, again, it cut 3mm plywood pretty good. I had some squares that I bought from Amazon that were 12-inch by 12-inch. I could have bought larger, but I really didn't need to. And you can see here we've made some clocks and things like that. Now, let's take a look at these cutting boards that we've done. The first one that you're seeing here is a cutting board that was done in bamboo. So this is a bamboo cutting board that we bought from Walmart, and we brought it home. We didn't do anything to it. We didn't sand it. We didn't do anything like that at all. All we did was we created our design. And yes, this is where I murder vegetables, or I should say my wife murders vegetables. I don't do any of the cooking because I'm horrible at it. But that being said, now, this bamboo did a wonderful job of engraving. We just went through after the engraving was done, we brushed it out, and then we recoated the bamboo with a beeswax and mineral oil mixture. So it protects the board, it keeps the board ready to go, and you can still use the board as well. Once you've engraved on cutting boards, you can still use them, which is a fantastic thing. Now, these pictures that you're seeing now of the different pictures that we've done, you'll see that there is a girl in a native dress dancing on a cliff. This is a image that I found online. I used GIMP with the big Gimpin plugin, and I'll leave links to those down in the description as well. GIMP is a free graphics program so that you can go in and you can do different things. Now, the big Gimpin plugin, this was a $30 touch, not bad, but what it allows you to do is it allows you to manipulate images and get them ready to go onto your laser, and you can save them as PNGs or SVGs or whatever you want to put into the laser. You can even, with the Lightburn software that I'm using, is you can actually import JPEG, and you can do a little bit of image tracing and things like that. I'm going to cover Lightburn in another video. It's beyond the scope of this review today, but suffice it to say that at the end of the day, this is a tool for makers. And if you are interested in dipping your toe into that laser engraving hobby, then I would certainly look at the laser for the Ortur Laser Master 2 Pro, and you can get it at Made the Best. Now, Made the Best did send it to me for free, but they didn't require me to do anything with it. This is all of my own opinion. They're not paying me for my opinion. I do like it. It is easy to focus. It is easy to assemble. We had it up and running in no time at all. It has a little bit of a different laser light to it as well. The laser light that it has in the second generation laser module is it's more of a rectangular instead of a square, which you'll find on the older versions of the Ortur Laser Master. It does a really good job of engraving. It's 24 volts. All of the cables are already in the cable chain, which is really nice. It's basically plug and play. It's all constructed on 2020 aluminum extrusion. There are some other things that you can get for it, like you can get a rotary piece for it so that you can laser engrave onto steel mugs and things like that. You can also get a untethered control device, which do I really think it's necessary? No, not really. Now, the shield that is on the front of this, and we'll have a look at this here, you can see that the shield, mine has a little bit of charring on it because I've been using it a lot. But the two knobs that hold that shield on can loosen up over time, and then that shield drop. And I had that happen a couple of times. So I'd like to find a better way for that. And now Ortur has put out their enclosure. It is now ready to go. I think it's selling for about $399 US. The overall size of the Ortur Laser Master 2, as I said earlier, your engraving and cutting area is 400 on the X and 400 on the Y. It's about 570 millimeters deep. It's about 600 millimeters wide, and it's about 140 millimeters high. Now, in order to use something like the engraver, the tumbler engraver, or the rotary attachment for it, you are going to have to disconnect the Y axis and plug it into this accessory. And you're going to have to raise up your Laser Master 2 so you can get that in under there. There's several different people who have done different types of cases for these so that, you know, they can keep the smoke down inside their home. We're going to get a quick little brief look at mine. You can see here that I've actually attached it to a board, and this board is already very well used. This is just 1/2-inch MDF that I'm using as a waste board. I have screwed the machine down to the board, centered it, did what I wanted to do, and then I drew a grid using the laser with files that I found on the Ortur Laser Master 2 website, or pardon me, Facebook page. There are a few people up there that have these Lightburn files that are all ready to go. All you got to do is put them into Lightburn, and it will go ahead and do that grid for you. So all in all, really like this engraver. It is an engraver. It is not really a cutter. If you're cutting thin woods, great. I want to use it to cut some fins later this year or early next year for a rocket project that I am going to be doing again for next summer. I'm looking to build myself about a 4-foot to 5-foot rocket that will take flight, and I'm hoping that I can do a lot of the work that I need to do with the plywood that I have, the 3mm plywood. I may have to go thicker, or I may have to double it up. We'll see. We'll see how all that works. But I want to cut out all my fins and all of my rings and things like that. Now, you might be asking, Rich, well, why don't you 3D print it like you did with your last rocket? I certainly could do that. I don't know if it's going to stand up. And I want to use this rocket to get my first certification, or my first level of certification with rocketry. So I had a lot of fun doing that. Doesn't weigh a whole lot. It only weighs about 4.6 kilograms. Comes in a nice little small box. File formats that can be used are JPEGs, PNGs, bitmaps, SVGs, and a whole lot more. Again, the control software, it comes with laser Gerbil. It will support only Windows OS at this time, but Lightburn, which is not free, that also supports Windows, Mac, and Linux. So if you go with Lightburn, you can go with any number of those different ones. We've made coasters. We've made a whole lot of stuff. My wife and I want to test it on leather very soon and just play with it a little bit more. But all in all, I'm going to give this machine 4 stars out of 5, or 4 hot ends out of 5. Really because I think that there could have been a little bit more work done in terms of lifting it up, and a little bit more work done in the wiring, because you can make this much bigger, but you're going to have to extend your wires. So there's a few little caveats there. I wish there was a little bit of a display on the front of the machine, but there really isn't. But I do like the safety features. The shutoff for when it detects a flame is great, and also that emergency stop is also a really great asset to this particular machine. So until we see you next time, please remember to, if you're new here, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you got something out of today's video, and by all means, let's see you here again on Sunday at 12 o'clock Mountain Standard Time for Ask for Help, where Brian and I will answer your questions about 3D printing. Until then, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print.